Great. Cool. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody. I know some people have used the site before, some people haven't. So we'll start with the really basics. If you have a question anytime, feel free to put your question in the chat. Abby's going to be monitoring that for me, or we do have a small group. If you do want to unmute yourself and speak up, you're also welcome to do that as well. But again, ask questions anytime in the chat. We'll either get to them right then, or we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So yeah, let me go ahead and pull up the site and then we'll get started. All right, so this is Positive Physics. Well, it was originally called Positive Physics. We now have positivephysics.org, positivechemistry.org, and positivestem.org. They're all just different doors to the same place, so you can use them interchangeably. Yeah, and I am logged into a teacher account right now. And so if you haven't made an account before, it is completely free to make an account. Just click on Create Account. I'm a teacher, and you can sign up manually or sign up with Google. One quick note, when you sign up, it'll ask you to create something called a classroom ID. This is an ID that you'll give to your students that your students will put in, and they can use that to join your class if they're joining manually. I'll also show you how to import your rosters from Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology a little bit later. So yeah, so first let's actually start with what it looks like when you're a teacher. So when you're a teacher and you log in, you'll land on the dashboard and it looks like this. We have our list of courses that we offer right here. One quick note, if you teach chemistry, use the chemistry course. We highly recommend the chemistry course that says 2025, 2026. That's the one that Abby wrote, and it is more randomized and more rigorous than the older classic course. That classic course will actually disappear later this summer, but if you've used that in the past and want to use it again, we'll give you a code to be able to add that back to your account. So again, these are all the courses that we've offered. You can also create your own custom course, and I'll show you later how to add your own problems or rearrange our course if you want to do that. So yeah, that's the list of courses and then the list of units. And then we have three different modes, work, extra practice, and assessment. And I'll show you how those work in a little bit. If you want to see all the units that are offered, click on this list right here. Uh, just keep in mind that for like the physics course, we have way more things on here than you'd expect to cover in 1 year. We align our course to the fundamentals of the AP exam. Um, and for physics, that covers all the fundamentals of AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2. So again, there's a lot more in here than you should expect to cover in a year. I usually recommend teachers to cover about 20 to 25 units from the physics or the chemistry course. All right. Again, this is the dashboard. This is the teacher dashboard, but it looks really similar to what a student will see. I also logged in as a dummy student, so let me just hop over here and you'll notice that just this on the student side, it looks almost the same with those lists of courses, units, and mode, but there's just a few less buttons here because the teacher buttons allow you to assign due dates and things like that. So before I show you the logistics of how to get set up, let me first show you kind of what it's like to be a student using the site. I have a little bit of a physics bias, so please forgive me, but the courses all work in a really similar way. So I'm going to show you Unit 5 right here. This is our Introduction to Forces unit. And again, this is what it looks like to be a student using the site. Um, when a student clicks into these lessons and questions, they'll see a they'll see a lesson, often with a video. This is an inquiry activity, so it doesn't have a video because they're kind of learning from a simulation. And then you'll see the questions themselves. This one, all of our units start with an inquiry activity. So students are learning from learning from doing like an inquiry like this. Sometimes it's linked to a PhET simulation. Sometimes it's our own simulations. As we go down the dashboard, we get into like the practice skills and things get progressively harder until they get it down to this like these challenge questions, which are really like honors or AP level. But we really try to break skills into bite-sized pieces. For example, in this unit, first they're learning how to draw free body diagrams, then analyze free body diagrams. I'll show you an example of one of these. So again, they click into here and they see this lesson with key points and a video. And there's a reference sheet right here that shows them all the equations and the definitions that they'll need. And then there's the problems themselves. Um, when students are doing the problems, you'll notice that some things are in blue. Like on this, all the numbers are in blue. That means it's a randomized value. If two students are sitting next to each other, they can help each other and they can share strategies by saying like, oh, the normal force is going to be equal to the weight. But they can't share answers because their answers will be different. So when students put in numbers, they can click check answers or tap enter at any time, and they'll see that right answers turn green, or if they get something wrong, a little red X will appear. Something that's new this year, or kind of at the tail end of last year, is if they get something wrong, you'll notice that you can set, and you can change this in the settings. It'll pause their ability to check answers for a little bit. It encourages students to think about things before they make the corrections. But they can later fix their answers, and then that'll turn a lighter shade of green there. You'll also notice in the upper right-hand corner, we keep track of two different scores. So there's the completion score and the accuracy score. To get completion credit, they still need to get the problem right. There's no penalty if they make a mistake first. And for the accuracy score, that only goes up if they get something right on the first try. Um, then one other thing, new at the end of last year is we have an AI tutor built in that's designed to help students without giving them the answers. So this one, they're supposed to describe whether the speed is increasing, decreasing, or constant. And so they can say, how do I know if the speed increases? And it's really good at helping them without giving them the answer. So this one said the bicyclist has a net force in the direction of motion. What does that tell you about the speed? And if they just say, just give me the answer, it won't give them the answer. It'll keep hinting at it and helping them try to get it, but it won't actually give them the answer. All right, then as they go through lots of different situations, again with randomized values, and as they go further down the dashboard, um, they have to put all those skills together to solve what we call complete problems. So here they're drawing the forces, analyzing the forces, applying F net equals ma, and then these challenge problems are more like AP level, and these multiple choice challenge problems are like practice AP style problems. All right, so let me pause right there. That is like a quick overview of what it's like to be a student using the work mode. I use this for homework and classwork for my students. Before I show you the other modes, yeah, let me pause and see if anybody has any questions so far. All right, I guess I must have done a pretty thorough job. All right, so next let's look at the other two modes. I'm actually going to start with the assessment. So the assessment is the only thing that is locked by default. By the way, a new feature that'll be coming out later is you can set, if you want all the work to be locked when your students first get on, you can set those from your settings. That'll actually come out this afternoon, along with some other updates. So from the teacher side, if I want to go to the assessment. Well, let me get to the right unit. You can go to your dashboard and you can click unlock right here. Then what it's going to do is it's going to randomly pull questions from the homework and organize them into an assessment. So on the embedded math, it's going to randomly take 2 of the 11 homework problems, and then 2 of the free body diagram drawing 1 problems, 3 of the free body diagram drawing 2 problems, etc. And it's going to organize those into an assessment. So let me go ahead and go back to the student after I unlock this. All right, so now the student can get into the assessment. And again, it's pulling questions directly from the homework, but the values will be re-randomized. So students will see there'll be different answers than there were on their homework, but if they did their homework, they'll feel super well prepared for this. All right, also a relatively new feature is the assessments are now, force it so the students have to take them in full screen. And so now as the student goes through the assessment, they can't switch to other tabs. By the way, though, if I click on any of these Zoom controls, it's going to think I switched tabs and it's going to record a violation for the student. So yeah, there. Abby, can you see that it says violation on here, or is that not visible?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So let me go to a question that was similar to the one that we did on the homework. So as students go through the assessment, you'll notice the AI tutor is gone. They can still check their answers at any time that they want to. But here, if they get something wrong, they can't fix it immediately. We'll do a couple mistakes here. But once the student goes ahead and clicks finalize, it'll take them back out of full screen mode. The top bar will turn green and they can start doing corrections. You'll notice that I had a score of 2% when I hit finalize. That score will be locked in. And now when I make separate corrections, that correction score I can only start improving my correction score. When I correct everything I got wrong previously or didn't answer, then that correction will go to 100%. The AI tutor comes back once the student is in corrections mode. A lot of teachers like to average these two scores together to put it in their grade book. Or if a student gets to 100% on corrections, they let them do a retake because, again, it'll be a super randomized assessment. All right, and then the other mode was extra practice. I use this just to allow students to practice. Like I don't grade it, but if a student has a low score on a low accuracy score, I encourage them to go to the extra practice and do practice problems from here. What this does again is it just again pulls questions directly from that homework and allows them a chance to repeat those, and they can get infinite practice in the extra practice mode. All right, let me pause again and see if anybody has any questions before I show you kind of the logistical side of how to get set up with students and how to actually create assignments. Okay, great. So going back to the teacher side, first thing is that I spent a lot of time making these help/FAQs page. So if you click on if you forget anything we went over, again, I'll be sending out the recording for this video. And then also, you can go to this help/FAQs page. There are specific pages for Google Classroom, Canvas, and Schoology to get set up with those. Also, yeah, just if you forget anything, check out check out the video. Also, my email address is all over the place, and I'm always happy to help people. So you can also reach out anytime if you have questions about anything. So yeah, let me show you how to set up your classes and then set up your students. So the first thing that you want to do is go to Teacher, Settings, and Setup. And you'll just activate however many class periods that you teach. So let's say I taught an A block, a B block, a C block. So I want to name those classes, and then I want to set them to active. You'll notice that it says active basic, active standard, and active advanced. What those do is that just sets well, let me show you the dashboard and I'll make it very clear what that does. So when I go back to the dashboard now, you'll see that I now have three different classes showing right here. And if I go down to the bottom, you'll notice that by default, if I set a class to basic or standard, a lot of these lower level skills are set to bonus. Whereas if I set my class to advanced, then all these skills are required. So then on the student dashboard, if you set a skill to bonus, it doesn't factor into their unit average. It shows down at the bottom here. So basically my recommendation, you can change those at any time. But if you teach an AP or honors class, set it to advanced. A regular class, set it to standard. And if you have a lower level class, you can set it to basic, but you can change those anytime you want to. All right. Yeah. So then if you are teaching physics or like integrated physics and chemistry, Make sure to check out what notation that you want to use and what value you want to use for gravity, either 9.8, 9.81, or 10. I should note that all of our questions have a 2.5% tolerance. So if a student is very close to the right answer, we err on the side of marking them right. You can also set a default unit and a default mode. So basically, if they just log into the site through like the main homepage, the default course and the default unit, that'll control where they land. And then one other tiny thing is if you set, I really like this one, show manipulated equations to yes, then if I'm a student and I go in here, this was life-changing for my students who are really low in math. Then it'll show them not just the original form of an equation, but the every equation pre-manipulated as well. If you have students who struggle with math and you really want them to focus on the physics or the chemistry, this can really be game changing for them. But again, you can toggle that on and off from the settings. Also in the settings, just make sure you take a look down at here. If you don't want the AI tutor, you can turn it off here. And there's a lot of other features down here, like how long you want that pause to be after an incorrect answer, um, how you want to handle late work. So yeah, so now once I have my classes set up, all my settings how I want to, then you kind of have an option for how to have your students join. It'll go over them right here. But the two basic ways are one, you can give your students that classroom ID that we talked about. So if I said, you can just tell them to go to the home page. They can create an account, say I'm a student. They'll put in your classroom ID. And then once they do that, they can click on sign up manually. I'm going to add Abby. Please note that your classroom ID, there's not a different one for each section you teach. It just puts them under you as a teacher, and you'll notice then here the student selects which section that they're in. So if Abby's in section A, she'll do this and click sign up, and now she's on your roster. All right, so that's the first way is to give students your classroom ID and have them join that way. But if you use Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology, then there's an easier way to do it. So first thing, if you use one of those, again, let me close some of these extra tabs. Make sure to go to that specific page. In each case, there's a little bit of work that your administration needs to do to basically give us approval to import your students and pass grades back and forth like that. So let's say I've done that. I've gotten my admin to approve things. With my demo account, I have it linked to Google Classroom. So now I'm going to go to Teacher and Manage Rosters. And then I'm going to click on Import/Refresh Rosters from whichever LMS you use. Once you do that, it'll pull up the sections that you teach from your LMS, and you need to map those to positive physics. So let's say this is my section A, this is my section B, and this is my section C. Tap Continue. It'll go find all your students, and you can import them. And now all of your students are in there. If you had a student join already and the email matches, it won't delete them or anything like that. It'll just it will then link them with your Google Classroom. All right, so now that my students are all in there, actually let me pause. Or one last thing is if you import your students via Google Classroom, then when your students go to sign in, they can just click on continue with Google and they don't need a username, password, or classroom code. All right. Any questions on getting your students in to positive physics before I move on to the creating assignments part? All right. So next, uh, two ways to create assignments, or I guess a few ways to create assignments. One, you can just tell your students what you want to do, what you want them to do, and then you can just view their scores and enter it into the grade book if you want to. So you can just write on the board or tell your students do 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. Or you can use these green buttons on the right side to assign due dates. This is if you're not using an LMS. Or you can assign more things at once by doing a bulk edit. Again, so those green buttons you can use to assign open dates, due dates, lock, unlock, anything like that. Um, so yeah, you can do it that way. Or if you're using an LMS, you can click on these LMS buttons at the top. So assign with Google Classroom. Then you have the choice of assigning the full unit or assigning individual skills. And if you're assigning individual skills, you have two different options. This one that says as merged assignment, that's what most people do. Um, I'll show you the difference as I go down here. So I'll click on assign skills as merged assignment. Let's say I want to assign it to my sections A and B, and I want to assign 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. If you do as merged assignment, this is going to go into your Google Classroom. It's going to create an assignment there with a link. Um, and it's going to but in this case, it'll just create one assignment that's these three, that takes the average of the scores for these three. If you did as individual assignments, it would go into your Google Classroom and it would create three different assignments. Then you put in the points possible. An open date and a due date are optional. Most people do at least a due date. So let's say tomorrow at midnight, and you can decide on grading for completion, accuracy, or the average of the two. Again, we recommend completion, so that people aren't afraid to make mistakes. I'm glad that Susan likes the merged option. I do too. Yeah, we didn't have that at the start of last year, and people told us that their Google Classroom pages got way too full. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and click Create Assignment right here. And it's right now it's going into your Google Classroom. It's creating an assignment there. The students will have a link that takes them exactly to where they need to be. All right. And then let me show you real quick from the student side. So now when the student comes in, they'll be able to see this little Google Classroom logo tells them that's been assigned in Google Classroom. They'll also have in their Google Classroom, they'll have a direct link that takes them to this page. And then when they go into one of the assignments, they'll see the submit button in the upper right hand corner. And when they click on submit, it'll take their three scores, average them together. And when they click on submit, it'll send their grade over to Google Classroom. Um, with all the LMSs, they can submit as many times as they want to. So if they get to 80% and they're not sure if they're going to finish it later, they can submit. If they do finish it later, they can submit again. Just keep in mind one thing um, that needs to be clarified sometimes is they have to click that submit button. Otherwise, the score doesn't sync automatically. They have to click submit to send it over. All right. That is a quick overview of how to create assignments, both with and without an LMS. Let me pause again to see if this time anybody might have any questions. All right. All right. Somebody asked, K Cooper asked, can you assign only certain problems rather than the whole unit? Yeah, great question. So like on this one, I assigned these three different skills. Um, I'm going to show you in a little bit later how to just create your own completely customizable course. If you want to use our courses, it's really easy to subtract from those courses. So let's see, let me go back to the teacher side here. Um, so if you want to remove anything, I can click here and just say remove, and that gets rid of this whole skill. Or let's say in the review, you only wanted them to do a couple of the problems out of the review. So now I'm going to go into the review here. And let's say I like question one, but I don't want them to do question two. So at the bottom here, I can click on remove problem. And I can say, okay, I want my section for my section A, I don't want this problem to show up at all. I don't want them to have to do it. And you can also do things like, oh, for section B, I want them to do this on the homework, but I don't want this problem to possibly end up on their assessment. So that's how you can subtract individual problems. So the default is kind of that you're assigning everything, but it's really easy to go in and subtract. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Um, all right, yeah, any other questions? Oh, great question. Yeah, how long do you expect each section to take the average student to complete? Yeah, really good question. So it depends a little bit from section to section. But usually we say that like it's reasonable to get through like 1 to 2 sections per day. And I like to assign the whole unit and have it due every like week and a half to 2 weeks. Probably on average for like the longer sections, it's more like I don't know, and students work at such different paces. It can be anywhere from like 20 to 40 minutes to complete some of the longer sections, where some of the shorter sections are more like 10 minutes worth of practicing to go through. Abby, do you have any thoughts on that? It just can vary so much from student to student.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. There are some and varies from student to student and from skill to skill, with some of them being more like quick practice and some of them being more involved.
Yeah, usually as you go down the dashboard, they get more and more challenging. So again, we really try to organize things where like we kind of do the fundamental skills that they need first, and then what we call like complete problems later. And Abby, on the biology, since the biology is less calculations and more concepts, do you have any kind of thought on that?
Yeah, maybe those questions are a little quicker on average because they're more of the quick practice style. Um, but still I'd say like yeah, 10 to 13 minutes depending on the content in the skill.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, one other quick thing is to just like a little bit of a note about the intention of this whole site. It's really supposed to help students get really good at practicing like the fundamental skills. So if you are like, what I really loved about it is I could spend a little less time like doing examples in front of the class and I could turn them loose sooner because this would check their answers for them and make sure they're doing it right. So I didn't have to make sure that every kid understood every little thing. Um, and yeah, they could start working more quickly. It also like when they had those fundamental skills, we could do like more labs and demos after that. If you're teaching AP, this is not designed to replace AP Classroom. It fits really, really nicely underneath AP Classroom. And so like use this to make sure students have the fundamental skills and then use AP Classroom for like the like to practice FRQs and things like that. One of the writers of the AP Physics 1 test uses our site a ton. One thing she says is she doesn't love to give students homework in general, but she likes to give them homework off positive physics because it seems very doable for students and it's something they can work through independently and making sure that they have those fundamental skills down. I also know that as when I was teaching AP Physics, one big mistake that I made is I got so focused on like the AP tests are so hard. Um, and I focused on those problems so much and kind of assumed that students had like that they could do like a simple calculation problem and realized much too late that some of them didn't really deeply understand like what exactly net force meant or how to draw a free body diagram or things like that. Okay, well, that was my little tangent. Let me go back to see if does anybody have any other questions about using the site before I get into some of the teacher features and the advanced features. Yeah, so yeah, like Susan said, the immediate feedback. Yeah. students, we tried to build this in a way that would feel like a really positive like a positive thing for students. And generally we found that the students tend to like it. All right. Yeah, so on the teacher side, let me show you just a few more things. So I've showed you the settings and the setup, the manage rosters. When you go into the student scores, this lets you see how your students are doing. You can, by default, oh, and I didn't have students answer anything, so let me view the teacher scores. So by default, actually, no, I did. I had a student answer. Oh, never. I realized when I imported the rosters, that student that I originally had became inactive, so we won't be able to see that there. But this will still show you what you would see. So for the students, you can see an overview of how they're doing on all of the skills. Or if you want to get more granular, you can click and see how they're doing on specific skills. Once the student actually attempts this problem, you'll see like a 0% or whatever their percentage is show up here. And when you click on that percentage, it'll actually even pop up. It'll show you exactly the problem that they saw, and it'll show you what they've put in as their answers and things like that. It'll also, there are timestamps of when they opened the skill, when they last attempted the skill, and things like that. And then you can also see when your students have logged in. And finally, especially for physics, we have this print work problems. So I like students to not only like enter their answers, but also to show their work, usually just on the review and on the complete problems. So if you do this, let me exclude the stuff that I wouldn't really need them to show their work on and go to print. This will create a printable PDF for you, and you'll notice that anywhere that there was a randomized value, it'll put in a blank. And so I have my students show their work on this page. They fill in their own numbers in these blanks, and at the end of the unit, I have them turn this in, and I give them some points just for showing their work because I think that's valuable as well. All right, and then finally on if you get really into using the site, check out these advanced features. So in the advanced features, it'll show you how to create your own questions. Best way to start this is by clicking on these editable examples. So it'll show you how to create anything from a basic numerical problem like this. So this is how we write the problems now. Um, it'll show you how to put in a randomized value, like so this 10.4 and 6.3 are randomized. Yeah, Susan, I can answer that question. So bio does have a printable, like you can print it out for every course. Usually on the biology, they're not showing their work as much as they are on the physics. That's why I didn't mention it there, but you still can print things out. Just keep in mind that when you print out the homework, it will put blanks anytime there's a randomized value, and we still use lots of randomization within the biology course.
Especially sometimes the pictures are randomized, and without the picture, the question might not make a ton of sense. So it probably varies from skill to skill whether it's useful.
All right. So yeah, here it shows you how to create questions from something like a basic numerical question with a randomized value to how to randomize a word or an image, like Abby was just talking about. You can also create questions without randomization, but like this one, it's randomizing the element there. We use this a lot in chemistry, and so it's randomizing between hydrogen, helium, and lithium. You can definitely do this even if you have no coding experience. And then it'll even, if you want to get really into it, the most fun thing is it'll show you how to create kind of like a PhET style simulation. So like on this one, you can set it so you're dropping this hammer from various locations. This one does feel a little bit codey, but it's like, it's not that bad. There are tons of directions right here. And again, you can edit our examples and kind of see the different things. Um, Yeah, and then if you've created your own questions, or if you even if you don't create your own questions and you want to, if you really want to like change our course, you can create your own course right here. You can create your own units, or you can take our units and our skills and you can clone them into your course. So if you really want to, if you want to take a unit and split it into two different units, or if you want to take two different units and merge it into one, or if you want to reorder everything, then this custom course option could be a great fit. Once you've kind of created the structure of your course, you can then use the insert questions feature and you can pull in questions one by one. You can pull in our questions by clicking on my questions right here, or or sorry, my questions means questions that you have created as a user. Existing questions are the ones that Abby and I and our other authors have written. You can pull those in from here as well. All right. Um, a couple other, at least one other feature that I forgot to mention. At the top, you can see we built in Google Translate into the site. So if you have English language learners and they want to see the site in a different language, they can see that here. We spend a lot of time making sure it doesn't like if you just kind of like copy and paste stuff into Google Translate, it'll change like units. It won't know how to interpret units and things like that. So we did put a lot of work in to make sure that we've told it what needs to be translated and what should not be translated. So we've had a lot of good feedback from teachers who have a high ELL population. All right. I know that's a lot. I think I've covered everything. Definitely, if you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. But before I do that, one other thing is again, completely free to create an account and to try it out. Um, the first 5 units of each course are free. If you want to try it with your students, we find that once people try it, they really tend to like it. And if you have questions anytime, my email address is everywhere on the site, and I always write you back within 24 hours, a lot of times in significantly less time than that. But yeah. All right. Oh, okay. Raquel asked about our anatomy course. So yeah, we had any course that's, I think anatomy is now the only one that's in beta. It means it's under construction. Long story, we're actually looking for we have the videos. We're actually looking for an author. If you're interested in working with us to create the A&P course, we'd love to hear from you. But right now we only have the 1 unit. Um, so try it out if you like it. If you let us know if you'd love to see it built out more, or even if you're interested in helping us create that course. We do have some teachers that use the site for courses that aren't even on our list. They're just creating their own problems just because they really like the platform. All right. Great. Well, if there aren't any other questions, um, then I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. But thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your summer. Again, create an account, play around with it if you haven't already. Reach out anytime if you have any questions. Abby and I are always here to help if you need anything. All right. Well, thanks again. I'll send this recording to everyone as well, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.